And we are live. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience, and I've continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 6 seasons. Let's make it 7 in 2020. But enough of me. I'm here for you on today's episode of the FV Show. We're going to dive into the Baltimore Ravens versus the Washington football team as part of our Week 4 game previews, breaking down every single Week 4 matchup, all through the lens of fantasy football. So if you are excited for this game preview, be sure to hit that like button down below like an open receiver downfield. Also smash that subscribe button like a power running back up the middle so you never miss a video from me. Last but not least, you can follow me on all social media platforms, of course, at FFVulture. But let's dive right in between the Ravens and Washington. I didn't cover the Ravens-Chiefs game, unfortunately. Time got away from me. But the Ravens got absolutely smoked on Monday night in prime time and are now 0-3 against the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, but also with Lamar Jackson at quarterback for the Ravens. So, what do I expect for this game? Oh my God, I'm sure you've heard this from many other people. I'm going to say this nice and clear into the microphone here. The Baltimore Ravens are going to smack the living fuck out of Washington on Sunday. It's going to be a slaughterfest. I fully expect them to put up a 40 bomb on them. The over-under for this game in total is 51 points. Smash it. Just smash it, because I think Baltimore has a chance to literally break it on their own. It's going to be... I don't know if I've ever been more excited for a bounce-back game in recent memory. I'm looking that much forward to what the Ravens are going to do this week. On the other side, though, with Washington, head coach Ron Rivera has already said on Dwayne Haskins that there's a cutoff point. Haskins has not played well to start off the season. They brought in Kyle Allen from Carolina, who Scott Turner, the offensive coordinator, and Ron Rivera obviously have a history with. And then, obviously, Alex Smith is also back from his gruesome injury as well, and it's one of the best stories of the NFL. I don't know if they'd ever go to Alex Smith. From the stuff that I've read about him and the injury, everyone has said it's very unlikely that he actually sees time on the field. Just if you break down what the injury was and, like, the after effects of it. So, I actually think that Kyle Allen would be the front runner to take over for Haskins if that were the case. Other things for this game, there are 0 injuries to note, so that's always a good thing, as we all know. The first 3 weeks have been littered with injuries, so the fact that there's no injuries to note in this game, that's always a good thing. But let's go into some start-sit questions for the week. Again, Baltimore, just please start everybody. And what I mean by start everybody, actually, I'm going to throw a caveat into this because we're going to talk about the Baltimore running backs in just a moment. You're going to start Lamar, you're going to start Mark Andrews, who, yes, has started off pretty slow to start the year, and then you're also going to start Hollywood Brown as well. Again, just this, I can't put into words what the Ravens are going to come out and do to Washington this week. You know, because Monday night was so hyped up, right? Monday was hyped up to be essentially Chiefs versus Rams 2.0. Right? That game was obviously special for a number of different reasons. At that point, Mahomes was on fire, and the Rams had the best offense in football. So we had a collision course that way. But in this game in particular that took place in Week 3, it was something that was built up to be this superstar showdown between the 2 best young quarterbacks, or even the 2 best quarterbacks overall in the league. Now, where you throw Russell Wilson into that mix, that's kind of personal preference, right? But the general basis is you have the 2 faces of the league battling it out on Monday night, and their teams are really fucking good. And only one team showed up, right? So, with that being said, just the bounce back is coming, and you need to start those players with confidence, right? As somebody who started with Lamar and only got 10 points from this week, it wasn't great. As somebody who started Mark Andrews and only got, I think I got like 3.5 from Andrews, not great, right? I think Hollywood had 2 drops. I know Andrews had a couple as well. What did Hollywood finish with this week? I want to pull this up. Let's go to Week 3. Right, Hollywood also only put up 2.3 points. So I think that's going to be the big thing that people are going to have to quickly get over. The fact that a lot of people entered Monday night with the chance to win A very high chance to win, might I add, because of the expectations of this game. And when you get burned like that, whether you had a running back from Baltimore or a wide receiver or Mark Andrews or Lamar, and you thought you had a really good chance, and all of a sudden your chance went from I don't even know what it went from. It went from all right, let's get this dub to just poof, gone, right? Burn it. Last week didn't happen. A good fantasy manager recognizes that last week was a fluke and you can go back, right? You're fine. Trust who you have, trust the offense, and you'll be okay. That being said, we need to talk about the Baltimore backfield and this breakdown because honestly, I don't know how confident I am starting anybody. What is going on with my cord here? Can I? Alright, that's fine. So, Mark Ingram through 3 weeks, 28 touches, 125 yards total, and 1 touchdown, seeing 36% of snaps. J.K. Dobbins, the rookie out of Ohio State, 15 touches, 121 yards total, 2 touchdowns, and 37% of snaps. But there's also Gus Edwards who still finds his way onto the field as well, who has 18 touches, 3 more than J.K. Dobbins, 129 yards, leads the entire backfield, and 0 touchdowns, seeing 27% of snaps. So to break that down one more time, just in terms of touches, then yards, then touchdowns. 28, 15, 18, 125, 121, 129, 1, 2, 0, 36, 37, 27. What? And the thing that sucks about this is that if they had like a main running back, right? If they just had one, this running back would be so great for fantasy purposes. But they don't only just divide it up 1 and 2. They now divide it up 1, 2, 3, and that just makes it an absolute nightmare, right? We know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers backfield right now is a disaster with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette trying to decide that. The Los Angeles Chargers backfield is not at that point, but you can see the writing on the wall that it may get there at some point. The Lions backfield is an absolute disaster. And now we have a backfield on one of the best teams in football that is an absolute head-scratching mess week in and week out. I don't have confidence starting any of them because I'm going to go back to the roulette analogy that I've used multiple times already for various teams. That's not a game I want to play week in and week out. It just doesn't seem fun. It's unpredictable. And with fantasy, I like to have some sort of idea of what I'm going to get from each player that I'm starting, right? I need to be able to go into a matchup and say, all right, if I'm going top to bottom looking at my team versus my opponent, I know I can get 80 yards and a touchdown from player X, and I'm going up against player Y, who's going to put up 50 yards and 3 catches, or whatever. But with this backfield, you have no idea. You have literally no idea. J.K. Dobbins had those 2 touchdowns that came in one game versus the Browns in week 1. That was it. Hasn't gotten in the end zone since. Mark Ingram scored on a 30-yard touchdown run versus the Texans in garbage time. Gus Edwards is getting a lot of garbage time work, but it's still very productive. And I don't know what to do with any of them, in all honesty. So I'm staying away. I know people who own both Ingram and Dobbins, and I've seen them try to make that decision on who to start and who to sit, and that is not something. No way. I'm just going to sit back and let them try and make that decision. I have no input to give, in all honesty. Moving over to Washington, though, Terry McLaurin auto start every single week for the most part, right? Just you're gonna start a player who can consistently produce, even though his quarterback play is not great. He's done a really good job of still finding ways to be productive despite that. Antonio Gibson has had back-to-back games with 10-plus fantasy points, but his snap percentage has been a bit all over the place. 26% in week 1, 64% in week 2, then back down to 41% in week 3. So I'm not entirely sure what to make of that, in all honesty, but I do know the fact that he is getting it done, right? Despite the fact that the snaps are all over the place, he's still been productive, and he's still been finding ways to get in the end zone. Now, that's great. We've already seen the touchdowns come. I just need to see him more involved. I'm at the point now where if you're scrambling for a flex option, I'm more confident starting Gibson than I was previously, earlier in the season. But even still, what's the right way to put this, right? With Antonio Gibson, you're banking on a few things. I think the first thing you're banking on is the chance of him scoring a touchdown, right? What is the likelihood that Washington is going to be able to move the ball into the end zone, into the red zone, and just have those opportunities for Gibson? I think that's a very, very fair question to ask in a matchup like this versus the Ravens and their defense. But then also just, if they're trailing, is J.D. McKissic the guy that's going to be getting the majority of the snaps, right? We saw that last week versus the Browns, where McKissic led the team in snaps. Gibson is the best running back on this team, and I'm still waiting for him to really cement himself in that role. But he's done a pretty good job through the first 3 weeks of finding ways to be fantasy relevant, and because of that, you have to give him the benefit of the doubt if you plan on starting him in your flex this week. And lastly, Logan Thomas, tight end for Washington. We've been talking about him a bit here throughout the past 2 weeks or so. He's still seeing high volume. The issue is that even though he is seeing high volume, the targets are a bit uncatchable. And because of that, that is going to severely limit his ceiling. But chasing targets is never a bad idea for tight ends at all. Like that's going to be one thing that gives them a high floor every single week. Are you starting Logan Thomas in this matchup? George Kittle is practicing again, and I know that's kind of like the big thing, right? If you had Kittle, what was your option? And if you had picked up Logan Thomas and you started in the past few weeks, I get it. I understand completely. For me, Logan Thomas is probably a hold, all things considered right now. I do think that the potential for him to break out as the season goes on is still going to be there. But I think the valid question to ask is if they do make a quarterback change to, let's say, Alex Smith or Kyle Allen, doesn't matter who it is, what's to say that quarterback is still going to give Logan Thomas 8 targets a game? I don't have the answer to that right now. So that's why I actually think that's why I believe that Logan Thomas is a hold. Just because I want to see what happens if a different quarterback comes in, and I want to be able to see what the target share is going Thomas's way. All I need is 1 week. So if Haskins gets pulled this week, we get 1 week next week of, let's just say, Kyle Allen. I want to know the targets that Logan Thomas is getting in that matchup, and then after that, I will be able to make my decision. If Thomas gets, let's just say, 4 or less, he's a cut. If he gets 5+, he's a continued hold. But that's going to do it for my Ravens and Washington game preview for Week 4. If you're excited for this game and you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like down below. You can also hit that subscribe button like a power running back up the middle so you never miss a video from me. Last but not least, follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, people come and go, but fantasy championships are forever, and I will see you in the next video.